The space around Sector 19 was quiet, as usual. It was a region known for peace, no war, no pirates, no strange activity. But on that day, something changed. Inside the Galactic Council's observation center, alarms began to flash. A young technician named Varn looked up from his console. The screen showed something strange, an energy spike, far beyond what the scanners normally picked up. "What is this?" Varn muttered, zooming in. The data was strange. The signal came from deep space, far beyond any known trade routes. But the real shock was the energy signature. It didn't match any known alien technology. He tapped his communicator. "High Command, this is Sector 19. We have something, unknown object, unknown signal. You need to see this." Within minutes, the main chamber of the Galactic Council was filled. Representatives from over 50 species took their seats. On the main screen, the signal was now visible. It wasn't just a reading anymore, Dot. It was a ship, massive, silent, floating just outside the atmosphere of the planet Mevara 3. Its surface was pitch black, with glowing red lights tracing lines across its armor. It looked like it was carved from stone and fire. There were no identification codes, no response to hails, no broadcasts, just silence. One council member, a tall, feathered being named Jorah, leaned forward. "Have we ever seen this design before?" "No," the reply came from a military officer. "Not in any database, not in any historical records. But the symbol on its side, we've seen that before. Once." The screen zoomed in. A small silver emblem sat near the nose of the ship. A circle, a blue planet, a single word written. In ancient Terran language, Earth. The room went silent. For many in the council, Earth was just a myth, a forgotten world. Long ago, it was said that a race called humans had joined the galactic community. But something happened. No one knew the full story. Records were erased, stories faded, and Earth disappeared. Until now, a soft whisper came from one corner of the chamber. The Deathworlders. Another added, they weren't supposed to exist anymore. One elder, old and thin with glowing white eyes, stood slowly. "We sealed the records for a reason. The last time a Terran ship appeared in the galaxy, 5 civilizations fell within weeks, and they didn't even declare war." Everyone turned to him in disbelief. "But that was just legend," someone said. "Just fear stories told to new captains." The elder stared at the ship on the screen. "Legends don't enter orbit." On Mevara 3, panic was spreading. People ran through the streets. Skywatchers saw the black ship floating above their skies. No one knew what it wanted. No one knew what to do. The planetary defense system was activated, but no weapons were fired. The leaders were afraid. One wrong move could be the end. Back in the council chamber, discussions grew louder. Do we greet them? No, they didn't answer hails. Then do we prepare for battle? Against that, you saw the power signature. That ship's reactor could destroy a moon. Someone suggested evacuation. Others called for sending a probe. But in the end, no decision was made, because no one dared act first. Then, something even stranger happened. The Terran Warship moved. It slowly began to orbit the planet. Not fast, not aggressive. Like it was simply watching. The council fell quiet again. The younger members looked at the older ones for guidance. But no one spoke. Fear had wrapped around every throat. Finally, Varn, the technician who first saw the signal, stepped forward. "Should I try sending another message?" "No," the elder whispered. "They heard us already. If they haven't answered, it means they don't need to." Outside the station, the Terran ship continued its slow, quiet orbit, unbothered, untouched, unstoppable. And across the stars, the Galactic Council began to remember what they had worked so hard to forget. The Deathworlders had returned. Asterisk. Black warship above Mayvara 3 did not move fast, but its presence was heavy. From the cities below, it looked like a dark moon silent, watching. And still, it gave no signal, no voice, no threat, just silence. But for the Galactic Council, that silence was louder than any war horn dot in the central chamber. Tension filled the air, as screens showed every angle of the ship. Zoomed-in views revealed its thick hull, glowing reactor ports, and strange markings in ancient Terran script. No one could read them fully, only fragments matched the old languages from Forbiddenness. Files. A young council member, Lynn, asked quietly, "Do we know how many are on board?" "No," replied a defense officer. "No life signs. Or maybe we just can't detect their kind." "They could be machines," someone said. "They could be ghosts." The warship finished one full orbit. Then it slowed. A compartment opened. Near its lower section, a shape dropped from beneath it, a small, silent drone dot. It didn't fall. It floated, gliding down into the atmosphere like a leaf on calm water. The council members stood, holding their breath. "What is it doing?" Lynn asked. "Sending a probe?" Another guessed. "No," said the elder. "That's not a probe. That's a warning." Down on Mayvara 3, the drone reached the capital. It hovered high above the government dome. Cameras zoomed in. It looked like a black sphere, smooth and seamless, with a faint blue glow underneath. The defense system aimed every weapon at it, but none dared to fire. Then the drone released something. Not a weapon. Not a message dot. It was a beam of light dot blue, soft. It scanned the dome, slowly, carefully, as if reading every detail. People on the streets watched from rooftops. No sound came from the drone. No movement except the slow, careful turn of its light. "What is it looking for?" asked one captain. "It's studying us," replied the planetary governor, staring up from his balcony. "Like we're prey." The light disappeared. The drone turned. It began scanning the city streets, vehicles, buildings, species, faces. Then finally it projected a message in mid-air. 3 simple words. "Observation. Stand down." That was all. No signature. No name. No request. Only a command. Back in the council chamber, the message appeared on all displays. The silence became worse than before. "They told us to stand down," one counselor said, his voice shaking. "But they've made no demands, no introductions." "They don't want to talk," another said. "They're showing us what they are, what they can do." The elder stood slowly. "It's not a message to one planet. It's a message to all of us. They're reminding us that Earth still exists." A military advisor frowned. "But if they want peace, why come in a warship?" The elder's eyes narrowed. "Because peace with Terrans always starts with fear." Across the galaxy, the footage spread like wildfire. Systems far from Mayvara 3 received the transmission. Colonies, outposts, and deep space stations all saw the message. Observation. Stand. Down. Old officers who had served in forgotten border wars recognized the style. The silent approach. The cold message. The Terran method was always the same: appear, observe, and leave the fear behind. In the past, Terran warships didn't invade. They simply arrived and waited. Many empires crumbled without a single shot fired. The council had hoped those stories were myths. Now they weren't so sure. The drone returned to orbit and docked back into the ship's hull. The warship once again went silent. No movement. No energy spikes. Just presence. Some council members wanted to prepare a fleet. Others demanded surrender, but the most experienced among them said nothing. They knew this was not a random visit. This was a reminder. Earth was watching. Asterisk. The drone's message still hovered in the minds of every council member. Observation, stand down. It was just 3 words. But to those who understood the past, it felt like a whisper from a ghost the galaxy tried to forget in the dark archives. Of the central council hall, deep below the main chamber, 2 elders walked slowly past sealed doors. Each door had warnings written in glowing red script. Classified. Do not access. Level Omega. Only the oldest knew what was behind them. Only those who remembered Earth. Elder Zarin, the one who had first recognized the Terran symbol, paused in front of the final door. He raised his hand. A scanner lit up. Slowly, the door hissed open. Inside was a single table. A metal box sat on top, sealed tight and covered in dust. On the lid, 1 word, Terran locked. The second elder hesitated. Are you sure we should open this? These records were buried for a reason. Zarin looked at the screen. It showed the Terran ship still circling Mivara 3. It's already too late. He tapped the box. The lid unlocked with a quiet click. A small hologram flickered to life, old and glitchy. It showed a star map, then battles, explosions, entire fleets wiped from existence. Alien cities burned in seconds. Council worlds crumbling. To dust and above them all Terran warships. Big, fast, unstoppable. The recording played a voice log. It was calm, male, and deeply human. Do not test the silence. We gave peace. You chose betrayal. We returned what you asked for. Then another log. Earth walks away now, but we leave this gift memory. Forget us, and we return. Back in the council chamber, arguments broke out again. Why didn't we destroy these records? Shouted a younger member. Because we feared needing them, Zarin replied. And now, the memory has come back. Someone asked, what did we do to them? Why did the Terrans vanish? The chamber went quiet. Another answered in a soft voice. We betrayed them. Thousands of years ago, the Terrans had joined the early council as allies. Brilliant, brave, but different. Their world was harsh, dangerous. They were survivors, born from storms and fire. Some species feared them. Others envied their strength. So the council made a choice. They lied. They trapped a Terran fleet in a false peace conference, and then destroyed it from orbit. They erased Earth's star paths from maps, locked their systems, cut off communication, and Earth never replied. The Terrans disappeared into darkness. Until now. Suddenly, a new alert blinked across every screen. Incoming signal encrypted. Terran origin. The chamber fell still. No one breathed. A distorted image appeared on the main screen. It was not a face. It was a glowing emblem, the same one seen on the side of the warship, a symbol of Earth. Then a message played. We detected. Life, advanced civilization. We came to observe. Another pause. The next sentence felt cold. You forgot us. But we did not forget you. Then the signal cut. No more words. Just silence again. Panic spread fast. Some council members began sending orders to evacuate outposts near Earth's last known coordinates. Others wanted to launch defense fleets, but Zarin stood and raised his voice. Fools, look at history. This is not an attack. Not yet. It's a test. They're seeing if we've changed. Lin, the young counselor, asked, and if we haven't? Zarin pointed at the warship. And that ship won't be the only one. Across the galaxy, military bases pulled up ancient files that hadn't been touched in centuries. Maps marked Terran incursion zones. Emergency plans labeled in case of Earthfall. Commanders looked at these records with wide eyes. Many didn't believe the stories. Until now. At research stations, scientists tried to scan the Terran warship again. They failed. Its hull reflected everything. One technician cried out, "It's like it's made of nothing." Others whispered about technology far beyond anything the Council had. One scientist made a chilling discovery. The warship wasn't built recently. It was old, very old. Thousands of years, still perfect, still deadly, still watching. On Mayvara 3, children stared up at the sky where the warship hung. Soldiers stood ready, but none fired. No one moved, because deep inside, every species watching knew the truth. The ghosts of Earth had returned, and they were waiting to see if the galaxy had learned its lesson. Asterisk. The Terran warship was still. Days had passed since its first message. Observation. Stand down. There had been no second warning, no sound, no movement. But the galaxy could feel something building. On Mivara 3, everything was quiet. Ships stopped flying. Schools shut down. Shops stayed closed. Everyone looked up at the sky with a black shape hung above their heads like a shadow that never moved. In the Galactic Council chamber, fear now sat in every chair. "They are watching," Elder Zarin whispered. "Waiting, judging. But why don't they speak?" Lin asked. Zar. I shook his head. "Because Terrans don't use words to prove power. They show it." Then, just as quietly as before, the warship moved again. No warning, no sound. Just motion slow and steady. It left orbit. Not far. Not fast, but straight toward the moon above me. Vara-3. Council members leaned forward, holding their breath. "What are they doing? Testing? Preparing for attack?" "No," Zarin said softly. "This is something else." On the moon, there was an old research station. It had been abandoned for years. Just a broken building, a landing pad, and an ancient comms tower. Nothing special. But as the Terran ship approached, one of its panels opened. From inside, it released a sleek black pod shaped like a drop of water. The pod flew down to the surface. Security feeds from orbit caught everything. Cameras on the moon blinked to life as the pod landed. It opened, and from within, something stepped out. It wasn't a soldier. It wasn't a machine. It was a figure tall, humanoid, covered in dark armor that moved like skin. Its face was hidden behind a smooth helmet. But one thing was clear. It was human. A Terran. The figure walked to the old station and stood still. Then, with a single gesture, it raised its hand, and the old tower came to life. Lights flickered. Power returned. Ancient antennas turned to the stars. And then, the broadcast began. The message was not in one language. It was in all of them. Thousands of voices speaking at once. Every species, every dialect, every tongue, the same words. "We see your counsel. We remember your betrayal. But we have not come for revenge. We came to learn if you've grown. We do not ask for alliance. We do not offer friendship. We offer memory. Remember us." Then silence again. The Terran figure turned and walked back into the pod. It returned to the warship. The ship held position above the moon and waited. Across the galaxy. Leaders trembled. This wasn't an invasion. This was a message without weapons. A memory made into action. The humans had come not to destroy, but to remind. To show they were still out there, still watching, and that they had not forgotten the past. In a secret base far from the Council Corps, an old alien general watched the footage. He leaned back in his chair and whispered to his officers. They didn't fire a single shot, and yet they shook the galaxy harder than any fleet I've ever seen. One young officer asked, "Sir, what do we do if they come to our world next?" The general's face was pale. "We pray that we're not like the Council used to be." On Mayvara 3, scientists studied the place where the Terran figure had stood. The ground wasn't burned. The station wasn't harmed. In fact, systems that hadn't worked for decades were now fully online. Fixed, upgraded. It was as if the Terrans had made a gift. Not of destruction, but of understanding. A single line was left on one of the screens in the station. 4 words. You are not alone. The Galactic Council met again. No one shouted this time. No one argued. They simply sat in silence, knowing that the balance of power in the galaxy had changed forever. Not because of war, but because Earth remembered, and they had shown the galaxy something more powerful than any weapon, the weight of forgotten truth. Asterisk. The warship remained still above the moon. Its pod had returned. The figure was gone, but the message it left behind, you are not alone, kept echoing through every system, base and home across the galaxy. Still, the Galactic Council had no answers. Why now? Asked Counselor Lin. Why did they come back after so many centuries? Elder Zarin sat silently. His hands trembled. They've been watching, waiting, but not speaking. That silence, it wasn't weakness. It was patience. And then the silence ended. A sudden light filled the council's main chamber. Every display screen, every hollow projector across the galaxy turned on at the same moment. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't a recording. It was alive. Transmission. And for the first time in over 5,000 years, a Terran spoke directly to the galaxy. A man appeared on the screen. Mid-40s in human years. Pale skin, steel-gray eyes. His uniform bore the old Earth symbol, the blue planet inside a silver ring. His voice was calm, cold, but not angry. We were forgotten. Our systems were removed from charts. Our people erased from history. Not by time, but by choice. You chose to silence us, not because of what we did, but because of what we could do. His gaze scanned the council room as if he could see them through the screens. You betrayed us, not with weapons, but with lies, with fear, with politics. And so we left. He paused. The entire council chamber was silent. No one blinked. We did not return for war. We have evolved. We mastered silence. We grew in the dark. But today, we remind you, Earth still stands. We never died. Then his voice changed, lower, sharper. You looked away from Earth for thousands of years. You replaced truth with stories, with myths, but your fear was not wrong. We do not wish to rule. We only wish to remember and to be remembered. Correctly, he raised one hand. A projection appeared beside him, a list. Dozens of names, lost colonies, destroyed Terran ships, events hidden by the Council long ago. One name blinked red, Eraven Conference Massacre. 4,908 Terran lives lost. No survivors. Gasps filled the chamber. Younger members stared in horror. The Council had always claimed the Terrans abandoned the conference. They never told the full story. Now the truth was revealed. The Council had lured Terrans to peace talks and ambushed them. The human's voice returned. You covered your crime with silence. Now we bring silence back to you. Not as punishment, but as memory. We will not stay. We will not attack. But know this, we are awake. The signal faded. The man was gone. The screen went black. No one in the chamber moved. Elder Zarin's voice broke the silence. They know everything, even what we buried under stone and fire. Counselor Lin spoke, his voice unsteady. And yet, they didn't strike back. Zarin nodded, because they don't need to. Their return is the strike. Their presence is the judgment. Across the galaxy, governments held emergency meetings. Civilizations reviewed ancient treaties. Old enemies suddenly called for unity. Terran Warship, a single ship, had shifted the balance of power across 1,000,000 stars. Without firing a single shot, On a farming planet in the outer rim, a child looked at the sky with a telescope. He saw the Terran ship black, glowing, still. He asked his mother, "Are they gods?" She shook her head, smiling weakly. "No, child, they're just humans." But her voice carried the weight of truth, and fear. Back in the council chamber, messages poured in from systems across the galaxy, one after another. "Do not provoke the Terrans. Stand down all military forces. Begin truth restoration. Open Earth files." All of them. For the first time in living memory, the council wasn't leading it was following. And the one leading them was the silent shadow in orbit in the ship. Behind the black walls and quiet decks, the man who had spoken stood before a star map, alone, hands behind his back. Calm. Another Terran officer approached. "Sir," she said, "do we continue to the next system?" He nodded once. "Let them remember. Let them see we didn't vanish. We chose silence. Now they must decide what comes next." The warship turned slowly. Its engines lit up, but it didn't fire. It simply began to move, and the galaxy held its breath once more. The council chamber was no longer filled with order and wisdom. Now it was filled with panic. Dozens of voices shouted at once. Screens blinked with incoming threats. Some demanded answers. Some wanted revenge. Others begged to surrender, even though Earth had made no demands at all. And above them all, in orbit, the Terran Warship remained silent, unmoving, present, elder. Zarin sat quietly as the others argued. He had seen this before, not with Earth, but with fear. "They've declared war without weapons," shouted Counselor Bellin. "No," Lynn said sharply. "They declared memory." "And what do we do with memory?" Another barked. "Let it burn us?" Zarin stood. His voice, though soft, cut through the noise like a blade. "We do what we should have done long ago. We tell the truth." The chamber went quiet. At that moment, another signal arrived, not from the warship, but from within the council's own systems. Unauthorized, untraceable. It activated a hidden archive one not even most elders knew existed. And on the screens, a single video began to play. It was old, grainy. It showed a massive golden hall, a Raven Peace Conference. Terran delegates stood calmly at the edge of the platform, their hands open, weapons down. Across from them stood the council's then leaders. Peace banners were raised. Music played softly. And then the council ships fired. Without warning, without cause. The platform shattered. Terrans fell in silence. No screams. No violence from them. Just surprise. And then flame. The room fell completely silent. Some council members wept. Some covered their faces in shame. Others could not even breathe. Counselor Lin stared at the floor. "They trusted us," he whispered. Zari, and closed his eyes. "And we answered with betrayal." Outside the chamber, the galaxy watched the broadcast. Billions of beings from thousands of species saw the truth with their own eyes. The myth of Terran. Vengeance was not born from violence. It was born from silence and restraint. Had every right to fight back, but they chose to disappear. Until now. In the military command rooms of core worlds, generals disabled weapons without being told. In the academic halls of once proud planets, students replaced edited history books with the raw footage. On peaceful worlds, statues of false heroes were pulled down and replaced with a single plaque. "Earth remembers. So must we." Back in the council chamber, a final message arrived. The last. One line only. From the Terran ship. Projected in the air, glowing. Faint blue. She was one of ours. Confused whispers filled the room. "She who?" Someone asked. Zarin's voice trembled. He knew. He remembered. Long ago, A young Terran scientist named Myra had worked with the Council to share Terran energy secrets. She built peaceful systems, powered cities, helped grow crops, but when Earth was betrayed, she was left behind, captured, interrogated, erased from records. And now the Terrans had spoken her name. Without saying it, she was one of ours. A quiet message, a heavy one, not of vengeance, but of grief. Lynn stood. His voice cracked. They didn't forget her. No, Zarin whispered. And may never forget their own. The warship began to move. Slowly, it pulled away from Mivara 3's moon. Now shots were fired. No threats made. It left in complete silence. But its departure was not peace. It was a warning. A bay reminder burned into history. In every star system touched. By the Terran signal, messages appeared overnight. We did not return to conquer. We returned to remind. Silence is not weakness. Memory is not mercy. The Council, broken and silent, could no longer hide behind titles. Galaxy now understood. Terrans were not monsters. They were survivors. And survivors never forget. Asterisk. The black Terran warship moved slowly, drifting away from Mivara 3's moon. But the silence it left behind screamed louder than any weapon. Inside the Galactic Council, no one dared speak. The final message, she was one of ours, was still floating in the air, burning in every mind, searing through every layer of old lies. They had forgotten Myra, but Earth had not. Earth never forgets its own. Across the stars, things began to change. On war-torn planets, rival leaders met some for the first time in centuries. They didn't speak of alliances, treaties, or money. They spoke of Earth not out of fear, but out of realization. A single Terran ship had shaken the galaxy to its core, not by force, but by truth. In hidden rooms, once proud governments destroyed old lies. Old reports were unsealed. Lost Terran. Names were spoken again. Memorials were built on silent stations and quiet moons. Names once buried carved in metal. To the forgotten, to the betrayed. We remember now. Back on Mivara 3, the people watched the sky as the warship passed overhead one last time. It didn't fire. It didn't threaten. It simply paused for exactly 30 seconds. Then, from its underside, a final beacon dropped into orbit, a shining ring of light, floating in space. It wasn't a weapon. It was a mark, a reminder. On every scanner across the galaxy, the signal attached to the beacon repeated one phrase over and over. Judgment is not war. It is memory made permanent. In the council chamber, the beacon's signal was displayed. It had coordinates. The location was far, far away near the edge of known space. It marked Earth's last known system. One counselor whispered, "Is this a challenge?" Zarin shook his head. "No, it's a door." At military command, admirals debated sending a ship to the coordinates, but all data showed the same thing. No one who entered that sector ever returned. Not because they were destroyed, because they were changed. Terran space did not kill It transformed in the outer rim. An explorer ship received the signal. They followed it quietly, cautiously. What they found changed their entire world. A system surrounded by silence, yet blooming with beauty. Gardens on moons, oceans floating in rings. And in the distance, silent black ships not attacking, only watching. The explorers left gifts at the edge of Terran space, flowers, poems, memory crystals. The ships never replied, but none were harmed. That was answer enough. On Earth, deep within the restored capital beneath ancient mountains, the Terran commander stood again before the star map. The warship's return had been successful. No battles fought. No blood spilled. But the galaxy would never be the same. that his second-in-command approached quietly. "Sir." A remembered. The commander nodded once. That was always the goal. She paused. "Should we speak again?" He looked at the stars. Thought for a moment. "Not yet. Let them sit in their silence now." Back in the galaxy, life slowly moved forward. But it was different. Teachers now taught Earth's real story. Soldiers were trained not just in combat, but in respect for silence. Diplomats carried with them copies of the message. We do not ask for alliance. We offer memory. And above Mevara 3, the beacon glowed forever in orbit, a monument not of war, but of truth. One day, a young counselor stood before the beacon, staring into the soft ring of light. She whispered to herself, "They could have crushed us." And behind her, Elder Zarin answered, "Yes, but they didn't come to conquer. They came to remind us who they were, and who we became without them." Across the stars, a quiet fear remained, but it was no longer the fear of war. It was the young. Fear of being forgotten by those who never forget. And from that day forward, no one in the galaxy ever erased Earth from the maps again. Asterisk.